Hey there everybody, my name is Nick and I am a super nice guy. And today I'm here to talk about buttons and designing one in Figma. This video is going to be great for people just getting into UI design or those who have been in there and also want to level up their workflow and components and things like that. I'm going to talk about the basic approach to creating a button, but I'm going to do it in a way that will fast track and level up into some intermediate and advanced techniques that will just really power hack how Figma works for you. Now I know what you're thinking. Oh man, this guy looks so cool. He's wearing all black. He looks like a rock star. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Sometimes people think I look homeless too. But anyway, let's get into it. I'm going to start off by illustrating this quick point here, which is that buttons can come in a variety of different shapes and sizes. They all have one key action, which is to communicate to the user when they interact with something, something will happen. You will start a video, you're playing the video, you will add something, you will be taken to a sign up form or create an account. I think it's also good practice too, in fact I know it is, when you're going to design something from scratch, it's good to have an idea of what you'll be designing, what's out there. Maybe you did some competitive analyses or you looked up inspiration, but you have an idea of what you want to design. These are just some quick ones I've grabbed from my inspiration source. I'll probably do another video on my specific style for using Figma to document inspiration because I think there's something valuable there too. Let's get into it. Let's just create a new page here, start with something blank, and then pressing T or the text tool up top here, we're going to draw a little box. We're going to type something like sign up. Maybe this is a sign up button. We'll make it a sign up button, at least for now. And so the method we're going to use here is going to just build off of this one element of a text layer, which is awesome. It cleans up and simplifies how you make a button in Figma. For this reason, we're going to need to set auto width here on, and it will shrink our box to this sign up button. The next thing we're going to do is use auto layout. We can do this by pressing Shift A or right clicking on the text layer and add auto layout. And then there you go. It's already looking like a button, just with no fill. What auto layout does, for those who don't know, it just automates a specific set amount of margin spacing or padding spacing. And here are those defaults here, 10 for horizontal items, which there's just one, it's the text item right now, and then 8 pixel padding all around. I'll actually go into here, press tab and shift up arrow and tab, shift up arrow, center everything inside of this. And so I've made 16 pixels left and right. I actually have my nudge amount specifically set to 8 because I work on the 8 pixel grid system, which is another super awesome hack that speeds up designing, reduces the amount of decisions that a designer has to make when making things, and it saves those decisions for bigger problems and challenges. And if you want to set yours to that too, you can go down into Figma preferences, and at the very bottom, nudge amount 1 is just an up arrow, and shift up is 8 pixels. And so again, I'm just a huge advocate of conforming this tool to how it best suits your needs. These are just another one of those things that removes any thinking about increments in nudge amounts from me. And so now we have our button with about 16 pixel each side, 8 top and bottom, but I'm actually going to ignore the 8 top and bottom. I'm going to make this 48 pixels. And again, notice 48 is divisible by 8, so I'm not thinking at all. I'm just choosing 48 or 40. We'll just add a quick fill here. We're going to add something like, oh, that super cool purple that everyone's talking about, or it's all over dribble and you haven't been able to design something with purple yet, and so you're just going to put that in there. I'm not speaking about myself. We're going to just add a 4 pixel border radius, then we're pretty much, done. This is a button. Maybe we just say button text actually, just to keep it general, because we're creating a component that can be dropped around everywhere. What I'm gonna do now is pause for a second. For the absolute beginner, it's important to note, though this is a button, you could create a single component and drop it around everywhere and call it a day. But a button is really more than just its resting default state. As designers, especially with the tools we've been given, we really need to think through all of these different states that a button can exist in. And also, if we create our component in that way, it will just make sure for greater design consistency. It'll speed things up in the design phase when you're dropping this button everywhere. It's already been thought out, and other designers can come in, pick it up, change it around if they need to. So the way we're going to approach this is to start thinking of what these different states are and all the different button variations that we want to create. This first one, we're gonna say this is a button, it's a large button, and it's in its default state. What we can do now actually to sort of help, again, not carry all of this information in our heads and in the layers panel, let's be visual. We're designers. We can map out this matrix and set sort of this mini roadmap of what we want to do. We're going to have these default buttons, and these are going to drive the instances for the later button styles, the other states. Those other states are going to be something like hover, something like pressed or active, and then something like disabled. And you can sort of put whatever you need to best suit your needs and whatever you're working on. I'm just gonna, for the sake of this, go with these 4. Now I also want to label this left side here, and I know this is going to be my large button. I'm probably gonna want a large with an icon, and really quick, a little tip is if you press Option Command R, you will right align text, and if you press Option Command L, you will left align. Option Command T will center, and I do this a lot. And so this is gonna be large icon, and then we're gonna create, there's gonna be 2 more types, which is gonna be small and small icon. And so now we can kind of see what we're going for here, and we know we just have to fill in these spaces here. Then we have everything accounted for. This is good to just think things out before you start moving and designing stuff, right? Because it can get confusing fast. And so this button large default, I think we're good to go. Let's Option Command K or right click and create component. And so if we do that quickly, it's turned purple and we're good to go. We're done. We've created a button in its most basic sense. Awesome. Okay, let's move on into large icon. I've just alt dragged, but I'm gonna actually break this. Option Command B or detach instance. I'm gonna drop in an icon here, and we're just gonna use a checkbox. I have this available. If you need icons, if you're brand new and you just don't have any resources, you can even just go into community and type icons. And I actually grabbed this material design icons here. A lot of great people doing the Lord's work, putting stuff out there that anybody can grab and use and so on. And so I just grabbed in a few icons here to work with. When I dragged this in here, because I have auto layout, I can snap it into the right or the left horizontally. Now again, it defaults to horizontal. If you, for whatever reason, need to do vertical for things, there it is too. We're just gonna undo that. Put this checkbox on the left-hand side. This looks cool. I don't like that that's not pure black. We're gonna fix that on the bottom right there. So the icon is black. Now what we're gonna do is say this is the master itself, and we're gonna Option Command K, create component. Cool. And then moving on, we're gonna need to just do the same thing essentially for small and small icon. We're gonna break this or detach it. We're gonna tweak these parameters a little bit. We're gonna say maybe this should only be 40 in height. We're going to say maybe we'll put these back to 8, and that looks like a small button. Let's drop this in here. Let's change the spacing here to 8. Now we have these 2 buttons. They're good to go, but if we press Command R, we can actually search for that word large and just change it small. That's a good habit to get into, and especially for this video, we're about to do that quite a bit, but like progressively more, and it's gonna feel awesome. You're gonna feel so empowered and incredible after you do it, I promise you. Now we can make this a component, Command Option K and Command Option K. Right now, we just have the default, and as I said a minute ago, these will be the parents that will drive these instances here. So that way when we go, if we ever need to change anything here, we're just changing it in a minimal amount of places versus having to do it everywhere. If you're just adding things inside variants, it doesn't remain true to the parent, which is a little disheartening, but I get it. Maybe they're working on it, or maybe there's just too much complexity to the variants feature that they can't do that. And so if we set it up this way, we can bypass that. And the quick way to do this, again, we're about to just do this in light speed here. Drag all these over, option drag. This is for hover. So to change all these children of this default state to a hover, we're gonna wanna probably make this darker. And I'll just show a quick little thing that I like to use here. If you don't have predefined colors set up and you're playing with colors and mixtures, I like to work in HSL or HSB. And the reason being, I can quickly go in and tweak the hue or the saturation or the lightness darkness. And so for this example, I'm gonna make it a little darker. I'm gonna just reduce the saturation and call that a day. So this is a hover state. Maybe we add a drop shadow too. So effects, drop shadow, and I'll just quickly make that blur a little bit better or something like that. We can say that this suffices for our hover state. What we're gonna do here is quickly organize these in the layers panel for this speed hack little trick thing here. And so now we have these hovers. They're still called default, and that's not true anymore. We're going to want to search for the word default. Again, if you have these selected and you press Command R, you search for the word default, it's removing that, and we can replace that with the word hover. And now all of these are button large, hover, button large at the top, button small. Now these are good to go to make components. And if we click the first one here in our layers panel, then we can option Command K and press tab and just do that down the list. And then all four are now masters of their own based off of this first instance here, which is super cool. So if we ever need to change anything, it'll trickle down. We only have to edit these first four versus all 16 in this example. And so we're gonna do the same thing again, and then boom, work on our press state here. And for press, I'm just gonna remove the drop shadow from that bottom right and just toggle that off. If you press enter when selected on things, you'll go down one level in the layers panel, and that's where the shadow is. And so I'll just turn that off. And now our pressed is good to go. And so we're gonna do the same thing, Command R. These are no longer hover, so search for that word hover and replace with pressed. And now all of these say button large pressed, button small pressed. And if we press option L, we can close all those up too in the layers panel. We're gonna do the same thing again. So now that they're named properly, we can make them their own components. So Command Option K, tab, Command Option K, tab, Command Option K. We're gonna take this and do it one more time for our disabled state, and selecting all these at once. We're going to come over here and just reduce the saturation to 0 because they are disabled. What just happened? That was weird. Cool. The last thing, and then finally, I'll just make this all the pure black to like a 65% so that it looks grayed out and inactive or disabled. So now the same thing again. These are all styled like our disabled, but they're all named pressed. If we press Command R, search for the word pressed because they're not pressed anymore, and then call that disabled. Boom. Sweet. Good to go. Same thing. Move through the layers panel, option Command K. If you press tab, you'll go down, and shift tab, you'll go up. Everything's good to go. And then the beauty of this is they're all children to this first the first full column there. And we're going to select them all and combine as variants. Boom, we've just created this variant. Right off the bat, it's kind of cool, but it needs to be cooler. It's not serving every need we have. For one, the icon that we've created, the icon no icon, hasn't been addressed, and we'll do that in just a sec. The second thing I want to call out is that Figma defaults to those slash parameters, large, default, hover, as property values, property 1 and property 2, right? So we have large and small, and we have default, disabled, hover, pressed. But really, I want to look at these as size and state. And again, this is just a way to use Figma to lend itself to what's in my head and help me think about these things in a clearer way. And so what we're gonna do is the property 1, where that comes from is if you click into this very first button here, or any of them, and you double click in the layers panel, you'll see property 1 equals large, property 2 equals default. And so that's what's happening behind the scenes. Figma just hides it, and so it's cleaner and you can see at a glance. But what we're gonna do, you might have guessed it, we're gonna select them all, Command R, and rename all of the property 1s to say size. We can do that here, property 1, change that to size. And now you see on the right hand side, the size is the first property. And then if we do that again and we say property 2, replace that with state. And now our drop downs make much more sense. We have size and state. Okay, so then the next thing to do is to account for the icon issue. And again, we have this thing where Figma is yelling at us because of this conflict in our variants. We need to add a Boolean in code terminology. We need to say something is true or it is false. If it's true, we define what that is. If it's true, show an icon. If it's false, do not show an icon. And so we're going to select this first row large and the second row small. These will be icon equals false. There is no icon. Again, another speed hack. If you press Command R, you press current name here. Rename to is active. You press current name, and then we need to basically say something after the current name. Leave everything the same. Press comma, and then type icon equals false. We've just added icon equals false to the 2 main styles that don't have icons. And then if we select the 2 large icon and small icon rows and do the same thing, we press current name, comma, icon equals true. And now we have icon toggle switch, which is just the coolest thing ever. Like, it's way cooler than the drop downs. You've just added a toggle switch to your variant. Like, yeah, I did that, you know? And so you can add as many drop downs and toggle switches as you want. You just have to remember that whatever values are true for the toggle switch on, you need all the other values to be false. And that's just the principle of how it works. This is it. We've done it. You know, now we have this button instance here. We might want it small. We might want it to be in the hover state, but it needs an icon, or we don't want any of those things. And it's just a regular default large button. I want to just quickly end on some examples of this design system that it was in the works a little bit ago. This was just a random state of it, but I've set up buttons in a totally different way. I did a large button and a small. You know, maybe that makes more sense to you. Maybe you set it up that way. I kind of lean towards the way I just showed it versus these ones, but as you can see, the same logic applies to radio buttons and checkboxes and whatever components you might be working on. So hopefully this just blew your mind, because I really want to give back to this community. Overall, I'm stoked to start pumping out content. Hopefully I can do it in a way that is unique to the way I work on things and show something that anybody else, you know, isn't necessarily doing. Hopefully there aren't other me's out there in the world.
In the Twilight Zone.
Anyway, if you enjoyed this video or you got something out of it, please like and subscribe. It would really mean a lot to me. Until next time, super nice guy out.